Welcome to the Trailhead from Ultra Sign Up, where big adventures begin. Trail running is so much more than just a sport. It's a community, a culture, a way of seeing the world. On this show, we're not dissecting splits or debating shoe specs. We're here to get to the heart of it all, the people, the places, and the stories that speak to the soul of the sport. Join me, Zoe Rome, and my co-host, Brendan Leonard, as we'll bring you conversations with the everyday athletes, local legends, quirky characters, and creative minds who make trail running what it is. Messy, joyful, gritty, and deeply human. Because it's not just about chasing finish lines. It's about the friendships forged on long climbs, the lessons learned in the pain cave, and the weird, wild moments that remind us why this sport is about so much more than the miles. If you're enjoying the Trailhead, the best thing you can do is help other people find us. Follow us on Spotify and subscribe wherever you listen. That way you'll get notified when a new episode drops. And if you have 30 seconds, leave us a review. It really does make a difference. And if you know someone else who might be into this, send it their way. Word of mouth is seriously everything. While you're at it, check out 2 other shows from the Ultra Sign Up Podcast Network. The Buzz with Buzz Burrell for the sharp philosophical deep dives you all know and love, and Between Two Pines for chaos and comedy. Something for every corner of your ultra running brain. Thanks for tuning in. Here's something I forget every single winter. I still sweat. Maybe not quite as dramatically as during July, but between some heated indoor treadmill runs and maybe overdoing it with the layers on the occasional long trail run, and also just existing as an athlete in the winter, I'm losing electrolytes without the obvious reminder of a soaked and salty t-shirt. That's where Element comes in. It's a tasty electrolyte drink mix with sodium, potassium, and magnesium. Here's the ultimate winter hydration move. Their chocolate salt and chocolate caramel flavors are so good. Heat them up. Thank me later. They're legitimately as good as any hot chocolate. I keep a mug at my desk when I'm editing, and it makes my winter hydration feel like a little treat instead of a chore. And if you missed it, my all-time favorite flavor, lemonade salt, is back full-time now because people lost their minds when it sold out. It's tart, it's salty, it's absolutely perfect all year round. Get a free sample pack with any order at drinklmnt.com/ultrasignup. That's drinklmnt.com/ultrasignup. So, Brendan, what does excellence mean to you? I feel like that's a big, kind of scary word that gets thrown around a lot on LinkedIn, but actually has pretty big implications for actual human life.
I gotta say, it's a word I don't throw out very often or use very often unless I'm like, oh, like this croissant is excellent. It's funny when in our guest today, Brad Stulberg, his new book, The Way of Excellence, there is a parallel to this other book I'm reading about. It's sort of about woodworking, but excellence is not perfectionism. That's a line from Brad's book, but it also came up in this other book. And I was like, that's a way better way of thinking about it. Perfectionism is impossible, right? And it's like, it's not a good thing to be trying to do in probably any respect of your life. But like excellence is, I guess what was nice for me was that excellence seems to be a little bit lower bar, and like attainable. Maybe.
Yeah. And more like flexible. I always think of, I think it's like Zeno's paradox of like, you can get closer to zero, but you can never actually get there, because perfectionism is this thing that I feel like is maybe dangled in front of us as something potentially attainable or theoretically attainable, but isn't. And one of the things I love about running, and ultra running in particular, is that perfection is such an impossibility. Always some amount of problem solving. There's always like some amount of messiness, some amount of having to like sort of deal with grading yourself on a curve and problem solve through things. And I think one of the things that attracted me to running in the first place, especially like later in life, I was not an athlete growing up. It was like, okay, here's the thing I'm bad at, and the fact that I'm kind of coming in as a novice and not very good at it helps me sort of get outside of my perfectionistic tendencies. You can't have a perfect run. It's such like a squishy, wiggly thing that I feel like it helped me step outside of some of my desire to be perfect. Like I was always a perfectionist when it came to like work in school, but then with runs, I was never someone that was like, oh my God, I have to jog around the parking lot till I get to 10 miles. Last week, I was almost proud of this. I ran an exactly 99.98 mile week. And I was showing my Strava graph to a friend, and they were like, that would drive me insane. Don't you want to jog it out to get to the end? And I was like, absolutely not. I have a cheeseburger. I'm happy. This is great. This is my
0.98.
growth
Wow.
curve.
It's funny. I would not describe myself as a perfectionist in any way, but like that would drive me nuts. I can't do that.
I sat with it. Look at me just, sitting in my own imperfection.
That's a whole other thing. Just being able to be like, yeah, I'm going to do that, so. Yeah, well, good for you. That's amazing.
Thank you. This is what excellence looks like for me.
Yes.
Hey, this is Brad Stulberg, and I am an author and a coach, and I am deeply curious and fascinated by human flourishing.
So your new book is called The Way of Excellence, and excellence is something that you've written about a lot previously. It's been kind of a big through line in your work, but maybe before we get like too far down that road, I'm curious if you could define excellence and sort of walk us through why it's important. I feel like sometimes in the world we live in of trail and ultra, there's this like amazing and really strong sort of like grassroots contingent that can, I think, sometimes veer into like being almost dogmatically anti-elite and like maybe inherently skeptical of framing things in the context of excellence. But you argue that it's everyone's birthright in our book. It's something that is really important for pretty much anyone to pursue. And you argue that it's not just for elite performers, but for everyone. So what is excellence? Why is it important?
Let's start with what excellence is not. Excellence is not perfectionism. So it's not getting a gold star and being great at everything always. Excellence is not optimization. It's not trying to turn yourself into a soulless robot. Excellence is not obsession, where you're just completely driven by compulsion to do something. Excellence is not hustle culture porn. It's not waking up at 4 a.m. to give a hype speech from your cold plunge while taking 47 supplements as a part of your 49-step routine. That is elaborate kabuki masquerading as the real thing. That is not excellence. I think part of the reason that sometimes people hear excellence and they get a little bit skeptical is they conflate excellence with all of those things that I just said it is not. Genuine, true excellence, it is involved engagement, caring deeply about something that you find worthwhile that aligns with your values. Like, it is as simple and as hard as that. And both parts of that definition are really important. The involved engagement, the caring deeply, you have to give a damn. Like, you have to focus and be deliberate and have intention toward what you're doing. And then the part that is a worthwhile pursuit that aligns with your values, you can become very proficient at folding paper. But if folding paper is not something that you think is worthwhile and that doesn't align with your values, then what's the point? But when you put those two things together, the deep caring and the mastery and the competence, in a way that it is in an activity that aligns with your values, then you get genuine, heartfelt excellence. And to all the people who say excellence is cringe or I'm skeptical of it, Steph Curry, Steve Kerr, Courtney DeWalter. There are so many people that we all admire in their excellence, and we admire them because they're excellent. So I would question that. I think that, again, it's just really important to separate the pseudo bullshit excellence from the actual excellence.
This is, I loved speed reading the book, and there's a lot of fantastic ideas, great lines in there. But I was curious, what is Brad not excellent at? Like, what is the thing? Like, for example, I'm really bad at frying eggs, and I'm not even trying. I'm like, this is okay. Is there something like that in your private life that doesn't appear in the pages of the book, or you haven't talked about it on a podcast, but you're just like, I'm okay sucking at this. Like, it's fine.
It's funny you mentioned eggs. I make great scrambled eggs, like some of the best scrambled eggs ever. But I can't make anything else. Like I can't make a grilled cheese sandwich that doesn't suck. I am terrible at cooking. I love music and I appreciate music, and I spend so much time listening and savoring good music. I cannot sing to save my life. I cannot play musical instruments. I have just zero innate aptitude for music. I can't draw. to save my life. I mean, we could spend the whole hour and a half going over things that I'm not
Yeah.
excellent. I'm actually like, I'm quite good at a few things and I'm terrible at everything else, to be honest.
Simple trick I learned recently is the old diner trick for the grilled cheese is instead of using butter or oil on the bread, you use mayonnaise on the outside as the frying agent. Just something
That's
to maybe give a try too. Yeah.
This is what people come to the pod for.
Yeah. Flip side of that question, what are you really excellent at that you don't actually talk about very often?
I think that I am excellent at my craft, which is writing. And oftentimes I'm asked about excellence in the context of sport. And like, I'm a good athlete, but I wouldn't say that I'm excellent. I think the way I pursue it, I'm aspiring towards excellence, but it's still a hobby. I think that writing is just an enormous part of like who I am and how I express myself. And I think that I'm excellent, not in the standard way. Like there are many writers who are better writers than me, but I think in the heartfelt caring in writing in a way that aligns with my values, I think I do a very good job of. And I'd like to think that I'm an excellent dad. You'd have to ask my kids. They might tell you otherwise. But I show up and I care so deeply about them. And I just try to be really consistent and values aligned in how I parent.
There's a lot of the material in your books is a lot of thinking for, I would say, an adult mindset or people who are, have a knowledge of sort of who they are, what they're doing, including this book, The Way of Excellence. I was going to ask, I'm not exactly sure how to formulate this question, but do you catch yourself taking the mindset that you're in when writing one of these books or researching one of these books and having to walk that back when you're with your kids? Like, maybe I should just let them do it their way, or have there been parenting moments like that for you at all?
Well, I think that, I would argue that the book has like done the opposite and it's really influenced my parenting.
Okay.
In a way to try to take everything that's in the book and apply it to how I parent and how I raise them and do it in an age appropriate way. Particularly this notion that like excellence is less about a standard than it is about a process of becoming.
Mm-hmm.
So that is some pretty adult level language. But for a kid, what that means is, yeah, like Theo, 8-year-old son, you want to try to win the basketball game. But what really matters is like, are you trying hard? Are you having fun? Are you meeting friends and teammates? Because that's the process of becoming for an 8-year-old. When he's 12, it might be, are you gaining resilience and are you learning about yourself? When he's 16, it might be, are you developing skill and are you pushing your limits? But I think like rooting everything in the process of becoming is entirely how I parent, because I think that parenting based on results is just, it doesn't feel authentic to me, nor does I think the research support that that's a great way to parent.
Outcome-oriented parenting. Yikes. So for folks at home, you're getting sandwich lessons and parenting today on the Trailhead. We're doing it all.
I'm either really blowing this or it's going to be a good thing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But I mean, sort of circling back to a point you made earlier, Brad, you were talking about the importance of caring and how it's, or some folks are calling it cringe. And as just like an over-the-top earnest millennial, I am like all in on all the things I do. But I've even noticed in this podcast, sometimes we can have a propensity of like poking fun at the thing we love to do, which is ultra running, which is inherently goofy. But I also do see sometimes that like it can be a way people can sort of dress nonchalance up, and it's really just self-protection. And you write about the biggest barrier to caring for most people not being laziness or distraction, but being that fear. Why do you think people are scared to care, and why is it being seen as the kids say, cringe?
Yeah, I think people are scared to care for two big reasons. I think the first is that you don't have an excuse if you fail. So like everyone can remember the kids in school who were too cool to care. They sat in the back of the class. They never tried in gym. And then they made fun of everyone who did try. But those kids, they weren't actually cool. What they were is they were insecure and scared. They were scared that if they tried hard and they didn't do well, they wouldn't look good. So I think that is a huge barrier to care, is that when we actually give a damn and give something our all, if and when we fail, because failure is inevitable, we're not going to have an excuse. We're not going to be able to say like, I didn't really care about it. That's why I failed. It's like, no, I gave it my all and I failed. And like, that hurts. That's scary. That sucks. The second reason I think that we can be timid about caring is related to the first, which is that the things that we care about break our heart because they don't always go our way. And when you pour your all into something and it doesn't go your way, you're going to end up heartbroken. And what I argue in the book is that this is just the human condition. And it's just the price that you pay for living a full, big, meaningful, textured life. And you have to hope that the love and the joy and the satisfaction and the fulfillment that you get out of the pursuit is big enough to hold the heartbreak of the inevitable failures. So you can throw your all into a race preparation and that race can go terribly. You can do everything possible to become a professional runner and not succeed and fall short. And that is absolutely going to break your heart. But what I would say is that the person that you become along the way by giving a damn and trying your hardest and the relationships that you forge and what you learn about yourself, like all of that is the upside. And it's close. Sometimes the downside's significant. It's not a home run always, but I think almost all the time the upside outweighs the downside.
Yeah. Kind of all over the place here, but in the book, there's so many, there's diverse influences and citations and interviews here. There's like Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, Shop Classes, Soulcraft, Ray Allen, Grammy-winning violinist, French chess grandmaster. Was there something, or was there a particular person or rabbit hole or tangent that you found yourself on while researching this book where you thought, oh, I did not expect this at all, and found something in that way that pertained to the book?
Yeah, I think that something that was like just fascinating is the powerlifter Layne Norton and how it took him 10 years to move his deadlift from 715 to 723 pounds. So that's
Me too.
10 years.
Me too.
10 years to gain 7 pounds on a deadlift. And around the same time that I was getting to know Layne and his story, for whatever reason, the algorithm started serving me up all the get 1% better every day content. And here's a guy who got less than 1% better over a decade. If you do the math, right, he gained 7 pounds over 10 years. So he got like 0.7% better a year. And it just made me think that like, wow, like a lot of these things are just oversimplified. And the mindset of get 1% better every day, like I actually think it's a good mindset, right? It's like, you don't have to hit home runs, just be consistent, show up and like get a little bit better every day. And that compounds over time. But it occurred to me that it also explains why so many people flame out after the honeymoon period of anything, because it's very easy to get 1% better every day when you're relatively new to something. But once you've been doing it for a long time, you actually don't get 1% better every day. And at that point, the motivation has to shift from those very like addictive, concrete performance gains to like a curiosity about the whole pursuit in the community that you're doing it in like really just the entire process. So it really helped me develop this kind of new mental heuristic, which is when you're relatively new at something, what's going to keep you coming back are those 1% improvements. But then at a certain point on the path of mastery, it's got to switch away from those 1% improvements and toward curiosity about the journey. And that was like really very interesting for me and something that has stuck with me. And the more people that I've talked to about this since having this realization, the more people that say, oh yeah, like I can tell you exactly when in my career as a runner or a surgeon or a swimmer, like I had that long plateau when I almost quit. And then what got me through it is I shed my addiction to tangible progress and started just to fall in love with actually doing the thing for the sake of doing the thing.
That's one of the things I love about ultra running in particular, is because the races are so long and the environmental conditions are so wiggly, is that like, I mean, 1% of a 100-mile race can be like many minutes of time. So like the percentages are like larger, but it can both be like really exciting because you can have PRs of like hours. Like I don't know how many other sports work. Like you can't take hours off your marathon time, but you definitely can in your 100 when you start like actually trying to train and improve. And then also conditions can change, or you make some silly fueling mistake and those hours can come right back on in a really fun and humbling and exciting kind of way that I think keeps a lot of us on this path. In the vein of that 1% thing, I think there's a lot of like sort of like pop psychology ideas about excellence and optimization and getting better. And you sort of talk about how there's like two types of self-help books. There's the ones that are like written by Navy SEALs, a lot of times marketed at men. And then there's like the ones written by yoga teachers, oftentimes marketed at me. And I really hate those because I feel like they're always like couched in this language of like, hey girl, hey mama, don't forget to be nice to yourself today. And it seems that you're advocating for maybe going between those two aisles of the self-help section. Could you talk about that sort of duality?
Yeah, the Navy SEAL football coach books are going to say, David Goggins, you got to be a badass, pull yourself up by the bootstraps, take accountability. The world is hard. No one's going to do your bidding for you. So like man up or woman up and do it. And there's some truth to that, but I also think that there's a lot of distruth to that. And I think that going through life with a chip on your shoulder and angry and being motivated by anger all the time is not a very sustainable route to excellence. The mama, you're going to be fine, girl. Just be kind to yourself. Let's all hold hands and sing Kumbaya. The world is really hard. All the structures are broken. No one's coming to save you, which is all the more reason that you should just be easy on yourself all the time. Like, try that out and see how it goes. Like, maybe it feels good for a month, but eventually, like, your life's probably not better. So I think the truth is actually that you need to embrace both of these mindsets at the same time. Like, you do need that fierce self-discipline. You do have to take responsibility and accountability. And you have to acknowledge that the world is a clusterfuck in so many ways. There are so many things out of your control. Things are really hard, and you have to be kind to yourself at the same time. I kind of have called it like fierce self-discipline requires fierce self-kindness, because if you can't be kind to yourself, then your discipline's never going to be sustainable. But if you're only kind to yourself and you never take any accountability, then you might not actually exert your agency to the fullest that you can exert your agency. So I think that it's not either or, it's exactly that. It's both and. And just about everybody that I met in the reporting process of this book who is excellent at what they do has learned to combine this like badassery self-discipline with a lot of self-kindness and self-compassion.
Back to our previous point of 1% better every day, I was kind of thinking along the lines of what you wrote about consistency and discipline in the book. I think, like, what about just getting 0% worse every day? Is that good enough? Like, because that's kind of what I did today.
Especially as we age, I think that. But even then, like, you got to define better more broadly if you want to stick with it. Because if you want to run for a very long time, eventually your biological age is going to start to have the time slow down, and then you have to be content with actually getting a couple % worse every year. But if you define better as age-graded times, if you're like very rigorous about finishing times, but you could also define better as just like, I'm like wiser out on the course, or like I approach the sport with more integrity and more presence. I make better decisions. I problem solve better when I miss an aid station, whatever it is. Then you can keep on getting better in some ways, even as one of the metrics of measure that better, the time on the clock might be going down.
Yeah, which is impossible, as we all know, to sustain into your 60s. But there are other ways of being excellent, I think.
Yeah, I think of my friend Amby Burfoot, who won the Boston Marathon and is just like such an icon, a legend in the running community. He still is madly in love with running. He still tries to be excellent at it, and I think his last marathon was like a 3:59 or like a 4:07. I mean, look it up. I don't want to get misquoted, but wasn't 2:08. And it's because Amby's almost 80. So if you have to figure out ways to stay curious. And that's exactly what Amby constantly tells me is he's like, I've given up, like I ran my PRs, but like, I still love this sport and I still want to be excellent. And for me, being excellent means like just caring about it and giving what I've got to give on the day in whatever body I have as I age.
Yeah, more to it than just going fast and checking off the right time. Yeah.
I think with sports and athletes nowadays, and you've written a lot about sort of like resisting the inclination of like over optimizing and overly being dependent or beholden to data, and in a culture that's just obsessed with optimize, like make sure that you're always listening to a podcast when you're on your run and that you're doing your PT while you scramble your eggs. And you've argued that we don't think our way to excellence, but we feel our way there, that it's like more of an embodied feeling than like a thinky thing. So what do you think we're missing with, like, especially in the world of athletes, are sometimes hyperfixation on data and optimization?
Yeah, we can miss out on our best performances because instead of feeling our way towards them, we're just focused on what the watch says or what the heart rate monitor says. And we let this secondary output, in some cases, it's like a tertiary output, like an algorithm that tells you your recovery score, dictate how you're going to perform instead of letting how you feel dictate how you're going to perform. In the book, I tell the story of the golfer JJ Spawn, who won the US Open the night after he had to wake up at 2 a.m. to go to the pharmacy because his toddler daughter was vomiting and she was so sick that the wife had to stay back with her while he went to get the meds. If he would have been listening to a recovery device, it would have told him, stay in bed, don't play the round. He played the round and he won the US Open. The Beatles wrote the song Get Back after a bender when they were all hungover and half asleep in the studio for the first hour. If they would have been wearing a Whoop, it would have told the Beatles, don't go to the studio today. We wouldn't have had the song Get Back. I mean, I can give you so many countless examples of this. So I just think that when we are too dependent on optimizing and on what some device tells us, we make ourselves really, really fragile. The longevity influencer named David Sinclair once tweeted how terrible he felt and how it ruined his day because he had a Nutri-Grain bar before bed. I think that unless you have a deathly allergy to Nutri-Grain bars, if having a Nutri-Grain bar before bed ruins your day, then whatever you've been in pursuit of in optimization has gone horribly wrong. And I give all these examples because they're kind of extreme, but I think like there's a lot to learn from the extremes. And I'm also not here to say just ditch all that stuff. Like there's a time and a place for heart rate variability, for a watch, maybe even for an Oura Ring or a Whoop. But you can't let that drive the bus. You have to drive the bus. That is a tool. You have to own the tool versus letting the tool own you. That's how I feel about optimization. The final thing I'll say is that those tools tend to help us most when we're beginners because we don't know what the hell we're doing and we don't know what we don't know. And those tools can give us some valuable feedback. Once we start to get really good at something, those tools just get in the way because, again, then we become dependent on the tool instead of letting the magic of performance happen.
Yeah, check in on your friends who can't eat a Nutri-Grain bar before bed, guys. That's intense.
The resilience required.
Resilience,
Wow.
Yeah. Shout out to everyone out there getting a full night's sleep, regardless of their fig Newton habit.
If you saw what I ate between 9 and 11 p.m., like David Goggins ain't got shit on me.
Hey, gotta fuel that boat carrying.
You might be an ultra runner if you can.
Yeah,
if you
boats
can
aren't going to
that.
carry themselves.
That's great. I'm resisting the urge to like read some of my favorite sections of the book, but I do want to read one of them because I love it so much. And maybe you can comment on it, or maybe you can just clap at the end as you're writing. It's page 110. There are plenty of lifestyle and happiness gurus who espouse balance above all else. There are also plenty of motivational speakers who assert that you must always be obsessed to succeed. But the truth is more nuanced. In this context, balance means you never go all in. Obsession means you recklessly go all in. Prioritization means you go all in, but not on autopilot and not in a way that ruins your physical, emotional, or relational health. When you zoom in on any one period of an accomplished person's life, they don't appear to be balanced. But when you zoom out and look across the entirety of their life, they seem to be quite balanced.
What book is that from? Who wrote that?
Oh man, it's coming out. It's coming out in 4 days. 4 days.
Available wherever books are sold.
Guy Brad Stulberg, you're gonna love it.
Every once in a while, I write a banger. Yeah, I can elaborate on that. I think, I do think it's essentially what I wrote in that passage, and then that's from the chapter I think on trade-offs. And I just think that like we get this all wrong for those reasons. I think like trying to be balanced, at least as the self-help industrial complex thinks about balance, like being great at everything always, is just unrealistic for everyone. In the guru, like you've got to be all in and isolated and angry and obsessed, like those people aren't happy. And that also doesn't lead to your best performance or your best life. I think just like being really clear on like, these are the things that are important to me. Here's what I'm willing to sacrifice. And let me reevaluate as I go is how you excel. Because there are trade-offs. Like you can't have it all. I hate those books. Like, you can have it all. Like, no, you can't. I mean, you're not gonna be a phenomenal ultra runner, a phenomenal partner, a phenomenal parent, the best employee, a great musician, have a fantasy football team, and be a great friend. You're just not. I'm sorry. Like that is impossible. Welcome to being a mature adult. You have to make trade-offs. That doesn't mean you should say that I'm going to be a lousy friend. I'm not going to take care of my health. I'm going to blow up my marriage. I'm never going to see my kids because all I want to do is win an ultra. You probably won't last very long that way either. But if you can say, here are the couple things that I care about, and here are the seasons of my life where I really need to prioritize them. And then how can I make sure that I'm paying enough attention to other parts of my life so that they don't totally blow me up? and constantly like have that tension and be aware of it, like I think that's as good as you can get.
Who among us has not been awakened by a crying baby in the night and just said, sorry, dude, balance, balance, I'm doing balance here.
Daddy's got an ultra in the morning. Sorry, son.
Yeah, Dad's got to keep it
Gonna
level.
have to care for yourself on this one.
Yeah.
So you use the term that I really love in the book of zombie burnout, which is exhaustion from not doing enough of what lights you up. And I feel like this is such a defining condition of our moment. Can you sort of define and describe zombie burnout for us?
There are two kinds of burnout. The first burnout is the kind that everybody thinks about, and that is just burning out from doing way too much. So like if you're constantly working 100-hour week and not sleeping, eventually you're going to burn out. There's another kind of burnout though that is the zombie burnout, which is the opposite. It's you're not doing enough of what lights you up and what makes you feel alive and what energizes you. And life becomes this like perpetual slog of going through the motions. And the ironic thing is I think that part of how this happens is we mistake ease, and in some cases even like happiness, for fulfillment and satisfaction. And they're very different things. So it is very easy to never hang out with friends and just use digital interfaces. It is very easy to never have intimate relationships with other people and just log on to Pornhub. It is very easy to order your groceries with the click of a button and never have to go to the grocery store, and on and on and on. However, that is not a good life. Like the friction of life, the going to the grocery store is where you see neighbors and you have these serendipitous connections. Being in a relationship with all of its messiness for a lot of people brings a lot of joy and satisfaction too. Why do we run ultras? Like this audience should inherently get this. Like there's nothing easy about running an ultra. And my guess is most people wouldn't say that they're feeling happy when they're running an ultra. Maybe some of the real like wackos, would say they're feeling happy. Courtney DeWalter is in the book. She's a wacko. I love her.
Real sickos.
The real sickos that tend to be the best at the sport. But no, like you don't, there's other ways to be happy. If you want to be happy, there are easier ways than running ultras. The reason that you're on ultras is because it makes you feel alive and it's a challenge and like it's exhilarating and you don't know if you're going to succeed. And there's tons of friction involved in it. Like you can do something really hard and not burn out because you feel alive, or you could try to smooth over life and just kind of numb yourself to death and not be doing anything hard and completely burn out. And that's why I wanted to coin this term zombie burnout, to capture that.
Yeah, if nothing else, you definitely will feel things running an ultra. That is extremely fair.
Yes, you will feel your body
Things will be felt.
Yes, this is creating meaning. That's what you're feeling. I'm getting meaningful experience.
Yeah, I mean, I think like people talk about type 1 fun, type 2 fun. I think that you've done multiple illustrations on this, Brendan, if I'm right on this. And like, I just think that like when we have too much just numbed out fun, and I don't even think it's fun, but just like smoothness in life, it's not good. Now, there's different kinds of friction, right? The kind of friction that like a single parent that needs to fill out 19 forms so that her child can get a cavity filled on Medicaid, like there's no dignity or meaning in that. That's just stupid bullshit that I wish didn't exist. So I'm not saying that people that have it really hard need to introduce more friction into their life. What I'm saying is that for those of us that are not in those situations where life is kind of smoothed over and digital, introducing challenge actually is the thing that stops us from burning out.
Well, you write about the idea also of shitty flow, which is one of my new favorite terms, which is sort of like this this is the counterfeit version of flow. Can you describe shitty flow and sort of define how that's different than true flow?
Yeah, so shitty flow is scrolling on X or Instagram and having your perception of time and space change. So it ends and you're like, holy shit, it's been 2 hours. You lose a sense of self. So it's just like, it's not, and you're not even scrolling Instagram, just like you're so in it, you're immersed. Like Instagram is just happening. These are like the hallmarks of flow. You're in a flow state. But then you get out of it and you feel really shitty. Like you need a hot shower. That's why it's shitty flow. Another example is what researchers call the machine zone. So you look at people in a casino playing slots and they're just locked in, like they're in a flow state, but it's a shitty flow state. Like it's not aligned with their values. It's not aligned with their goals. And you tend not to feel so good after you lose a bunch of money playing slots. So shitty flow has all the hallmarks of flow, except it's not doing something that we think is worthwhile. And it's not doing something that's going to ultimately satisfy us in the long term. More genuine sources of flow are when we're actually engaged in an activity that does align with our values and we get into the zone. But even those experiences can be dangerous because then what can happen, and this happens to tons of runners, is we start chasing those flow states. And we think that like the sport should just be that flow state. And if I'm not in that flow state, then I'm doing it wrong. Um, but the truth is, like, those flow states are magic. You can't engineer flow. Like, there's books that are like written that you can engineer flow. Like, you can't. And it's what researchers call an ironic effect. The more you try to get into a flow state, the less likely you are
Hmm.
to get into a flow state. So flow is a part of excellence, but excellence also encompasses all of the tedious, mundane, fundamental work and the consistency that goes into it that then gives you a chance to have those magical transcendent moments. And excellence is about embracing all of that. And when you have those great transcendent, genuine flow moments, you ride those waves and they're incredible and they're a huge part of what makes the sport worth doing. But you've also got to learn to love those workouts and those races when you're not anywhere near a flow state, because without those, the flow state's never going to happen.
I always think about like joy or flow and running sort of like an outdoor cat, and like you can do your best, like
Yeah.
put out a little saucer of milk,
Love
leave
that.
the door open, but like you just got to let it come to you.
I love that so much. And like an outdoor cat, to continue with your excellent metaphor, the more you try to like coerce an outdoor cat to come to you, it's going to go the opposite direction.
Yeah, cats, they can smell it. They can smell the try hard on you, you know?
I don't know if this goes with the joke, but that cat maybe doesn't love you either.
It's
You
true.
know, I mean, just saying.
You might have kidnapped that cat.
You don't know. Kind of along those lines, I mean, this is not in the book, but you wrote a piece for the New York Times in 2023 called "Not Everything Has to Be Meaningful." And
Oh man, you're
I
going
love
right
this.
to my most inspiring work.
Well, but it's realistic. And it's like, I think it reminds me of this like Reddit thread I saw one time where somebody was just asking, like, is it okay if I run ultra marathons and I don't have like some addiction or trauma that I'm running from? And somebody said, yeah, I just like running, and like people are come up next to me in a race and we start talking, they think I'm boring. And I feel like I should have some story there. And I think we're like I think it's fine if it doesn't have any meaning. Can you talk about that idea a little bit?
Yeah, I can. So in short, like very growth oriented people, and I would say that I'm one of them, we tend to want to ascribe meaning to everything. And we think that if something is not meaningful, then it's like inherently like we're doing it wrong. But sometimes things just suck. Depression sucks. A cancer diagnosis sucks. Grief sucks. Now, there are plenty of people that lose a loved one and find deep meaning in it down the road. There are plenty of people that suffer mental illness and find deep meaning in it down the road. There are plenty of people who have a cancer diagnosis and find within it deep meaning down the road. But it's always down the road and it's always on its own time. And it arrives when you least expect it. Whereas if you go into one of those experiences and you're like, well, this cancer diagnosis sucks, but growth mindset. Some people can do that, truly. And I'm not judging, like there's no right way to get a cancer diagnosis. Some people can do that, but a lot of people try to force themselves to do that because they're like, oh, it's what all the self-help gurus tell me I should do. When in fact, no, like you can say this sucks. There's nothing meaningful about this. This is just the universe being cruel and suffering for suffering's sake. You can start there. And then 2 years later, you could find it the most meaningful thing that ever happened to you. Or it could still suck 2 years later. And like that, both of those are okay. But what's not okay is saying, oh, I need to grow because all the self-help books tell me to grow from this. Now, there are other things that you actually can grow from. And I think that you should try to grow from. Like you fail, you lose a race. Like, come on, man up or woman up. That's not a cancer diagnosis. Like get on the bandwagon, grow from that. So I actually think like this meaning making and this growth mindset works for like 95% of situations. But then there's 5% of situations that just suck. And like the most mature thing to do is just to let them suck and to be kind to yourself.
Yeah, there's a line in the piece about like time and distance create, meaning often emerges. I think I had a friend who was paralyzed from like the chest down in a kite skiing accident years ago, and I was visiting him in the rehab hospital. And then for the months after, he was learning to walk again. And he said, there's a lot of these people I met here that, they get to a point where they say, I'm actually glad the accident happened or the injury happened. And he's like, I'm just not there yet for sure. I don't know if I'll ever get there, but I'm not there yet. And really syncs up with what you're saying there really well.
Yeah, I think
Yeah, and I think like
that's a profound example.
yeah, and resisting the self-helpification of like having to immediately turn every human experience into like, how can I grow? Like, how can this be my TEDx talk in 2 years flat? And like needing to like make everything into like either a piece of content or like
Yeah, it's
like living life as if it's a LinkedIn post.
Yeah, it's yes, that's really well said, Zoe. It's like the piece of contentification of things. And if it helps you, then you should just do what helps you when you're in the suck. But I think for a lot of people, it hurts. Like not everything has to be meaningful. I mean, I learned this with a really stark onset, severe depression. And I distinctly remember telling my therapist, like, I can't find any meaning in this. And she's like, no shit, this just sucks.
Great line from the therapist.
And yeah, she's she's a great therapist. And then though, like I freaked out that it wasn't meaningful and I was like super anxious. And she's like you just have to learn that like this can just like suck. Like your job is just surviving right now. In what, almost a decade on the other side of like being really depressed. I wouldn't say it's the most meaningful thing that happened. I wish it didn't happen because it's very painful and it sucks. And I think I'm a much more kind and compassionate person because of it. And now that it did happen and it's a part of my story, I think I have derived a lot of meaning from it. But when I was in the thick of it, like, getting over the need for it to be meaningful is very important.
So you've been writing about excellence and peak performance for many, many years. I'm curious if you have a belief or an idea that you've changed your mind on or something that you've like really evolved your thinking on.
Yeah, I have a bunch. Okay, where to start? So I think the first, and to come back to something, this might surprise both of you, is I'm much more open to people using like Whoop and Oura Ring devices than I was 5 years ago. So is strong as I was a little while ago. You should have seen me 5 years ago. You should listen to me. There's an old podcast on Rich Roll, and I think like Whoop and Oura Ring sponsor his show, and I thought like I was going to get kicked out of the studio because that was 5 years ago. Now, what I think is that those tools work until they get in the way. And I think that rather than being dogmatic about things, you should ask, what am I trying to get out of this? And is it helping me towards my goal? And for a lot of people, I think those things can really help you towards your goal until they get in the way. So that's something that I've changed my mind on. Something else I changed my mind on is in Peak Performance, my first book that I co-wrote with Steve Magness. We have a whole section on purpose and the importance of purpose for performance. And now I think that, and this is nuanced, but I think it's important. I think it's less about purpose and more about values, because purpose is like every day I wake up and I run for my family or for my community or for my health or something. But the truth is every day you don't feel that way. And like purpose comes and goes. And like sometimes like you're living and like you're full of purpose, and other times you're just kind of like going through the motions, and that's just a human existence. Whereas your values, like I value consistency, I value integrity, I value resilience. Like even when you feel like crap, even when you're void of purpose, you can still act in alignment with your values. So again, there's some nuance, but I don't think you need to have like this mission statement that you feel every morning, because a lot of mornings you're not going to feel that way. I do think if you've got a set of values that you want to live into, that's really important, and that drives showing up in performance over the long haul. So I think those are like two of the more stark, immediate examples that come to mind. And then as a writer, I think something that I am constantly evolving on is just like the best structure for my work. And this book is the Way of Excellence is, I need to look at the index. I should know it's my own book. I think it's like, you tell me, I don't have it in front of me. Is it 20 chapters, 21 chapters? Anyways, it has a lot of chapters. And what's interesting is I sold this book, much like my other books. Groundedness is 6 chapters and Master of Change, I think, was 7. I sold this book as being 6 chapters. And then as I was writing it, I'm just like, no. Like, this is like, I need to challenge myself to do something different. And I'm like, what if I just wrote like these short chapters that were kind of meditations on factors of excellence instead of trying to weave everything together? And part of me like thinks that it was my own like need to prove to myself how smart I am, that like I can write a big serious book with long chapters. And this book, I have some long chapters in the front, but I challenge myself and I put a constraint on myself. And I'm like, the whole back half of the book, part 2, none of those chapters can be more than 4,000 words. And I loved it. And I think like if I'm going to write another book, I'm going to do it this way, because I just had so much more fun. And I think it's a much better book because it forced economy. So that's something else that I personally have changed on, I guess, is how I structure a book.
It's 19 chapters.
All
And
right.
there's that famous Mark Twain quote about like, I didn't have time to write you something short, so I wrote you something long instead.
If I had had more time, I would have written it
So
shorter.
yeah, something like that.
Yeah,
So
but
I
I
also
mean, it
think
is
that's good for
interesting
people's
because
attention span.
well, that's like the scary part. Well, the other way to look is my attention span just going to shit. And that's why I made this choice. But,
No, I mean readers.
yeah, no, I know, all of us.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just like, as you were asking that, I was thinking back to all my other books and I'm like 6 chapters, 7, 7, 7, 19. That's a big change for me.
Yeah.
Well, those are all the questions I have. Brendan, do you have anything else in our final moments here?
Do we have time for one more, Brad?
do.
Or are you like,
No,
okay.
I got no hard stop. This is fun.
Perfect.
Yeah, I guess my question is like, as like looking back at all the things you've written, including books and articles, and I'm curious if some of it is sort of this exploration of how to think about life as a way of sort of creating an owner's manual for yourself. Like you're learning how to be X type of person and you're sharing what you know along the way. And if some of that is turned into like, what is the opposite of a self-fulfilling prophecy? I wrote this, so I better be about this, I can't just be a hypocrite. Does that make sense as a question?
It does. It's a great question. There's a line in the book that the things you work on and the way in which you work on them also work on you. And I think like that's what you're getting at. And that's 100% true. I think with this book, it has helped me seek out quality experiences in myself and appreciate quality experiences when I see them more. I watch sports and I get chills down my spine because it feels more like art after writing this book. I listen to music and I notice things I didn't before. When I do my own training, I'm much more in tune with like how it feels and the feedback I'm getting. And I'm much more curious versus just like wanting to hit a metric. When I sat down to write, I'm like, I better give a damn and care deeply and give this my all because I need to write the book that I'm writing in a way that has integrity to the message I'm saying. So I think that's 100% true. I think that it's not just in this book. I think that especially in today's world of like pseudo garbage, AI slop, all this nonsense, if we can create ecosystems around us of like good people. I mean, these are my own roles. People have their own roles. My roles are like good people, good books, good art, good sport. And if I'm surrounding myself with good people, if I'm reading good books, if I'm enjoying good art and I'm watching good sport, I'm very like satisfied. Like, and I feel good and I'm my best. When I let those things go and I start like bright and shiny object chasing, I don't feel well and I don't perform well. And I think that that like a part of your ecosystem is your goals and how you pursue them. Absolutely.
That feels really good to end on, I think.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Brad. This has been awesome.
Good democracy would be nice to add to the list, but
we'll take it.
That ship is set. That ship is sailing. I guess it's sailing to Greenland right now or something like that.
Sailing on its way to Greenland.
Have you ever met anybody who hates Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance because they're out there and like
they are?
I have
met those people. No, I think a lot of people haven't. I think a lot of people haven't actually read it, and then some people read it very literally, and they can't get into it. Is one issue.
Yeah,
I think some people
they're like, my motorcycle still won't go.
Right. Or yes, no, truly. And then I think some people just see what a shitty father he is in the book because he is a really shitty father, and like they just latch on to that. And have you read the book, either of you?
Oh yeah. No, I read it in college, like you did, just like on my own.
My read of it in the father part is he is a shitty father, but to me, like there's like all this tension in the book because like his own definition of quality is like just such caring about something. And back to like love it. Back to you've got the chick version, the pink version, very appropriate.
I know, isn't it cute?
That's the one. That's the one I read. The trade paperback. Yeah.
The way that I think the father thing is, I think like that's like a great example of like here's this guy like obsessed with quality and writing this incredible book on quality, and he's just a shitty dad. And like that's like the dark side of like quality and of going all in. So I actually think that's like really important to the book. But then people are like, this guy, like you look up to this guy, like I feel bad for your kid, and I'm like, come on, like you're missing the boat.
If you like don't enjoy reading creative work by people with challenging parenting abilities, then your oeuvre is going to be extremely small.
But I haven't. But so yes, I've met those people. And those are some of the things that come up. I just like, how could you like it? He's such a shitty dad. And I'm like that like, yeah. And I'm not a shitty dad because this was a phenomenal warning. Like, if I'm wired to be obsessed, I better be very careful not to be a shitty dad. So like, thank you, Robert Pirsig, for showing me that.
So is Kanye. I don't know,
Yeah,
So is Kanye.
So is Kanye.
I was riding bikes with my friend Maynard one time. He's a much older cycling rider, longtime cyclist, Tour de France, blah, blah, blah. And I just go, yeah, it's kind of like in Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. He just looks over at me and goes, unreadable. Well, okay. That's one glowing review.
Thanks so much for taking the time, Brad. This was awesome.
Great. Thank you so much. I'm glad to have done this and got to spend time with you. This was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Brad.
Thanks, Brad.
Looking for a race that's more chaos than corporate? The Devil Makes 3 50K and 10-miler wants you. Misfits, monsters, and everyone in between. On May 16th, head to Waxhaw, North Carolina for a 10-mile loop through some of the prettiest woods the state has to offer. Run it once for the 10-miler or knock it out 3 times for the 50K. We're talking technical single track, beautiful prairie grass, wooded double track, and lake views that'll make you forget your suffering. The race is so beginner friendly and has amazing, generous cutoffs. The entry fee is kept low on purpose because trail running should be accessible, not expensive. You get a medal, a good time, and tons of bragging rights. Shirts are an optional add-on, and it's cupless, so bring your own hydration. We love a sustainable race. Set up camp at the start and finish, spread out your snacks, and settle in for the best day of honest, no-frills trail running. No refunds, no regrets. Just you, the woods, and whatever inner demons you bring along for the ride. Registration closes May 13th. Sign up now at ultrasignup.com. Thanks for joining us on the Trailhead. If you love this episode, leave us a review. Share it with your trail crew and make sure to subscribe so you never miss an adventure. Give us a follow on Instagram at TrailheadPod. And you can reach us anytime at trailhead@ultrasignup.com. We'd love to hear your stories, questions, guest ideas, or just to say hi. And don't forget to check out all of the shows in the Ultra Podcast Network. We're building something special, and it's just for you. We'll see you every other week, right here on the Trailhead.